is 2018-19 going to continue to be about cost cutting? Is it going to continue to be about optimization, divestiture? How much of it is going to be about growth opportunities?
Sure. So you almost have to think of this as a tale of two cities. So we have had challenges in 2017, largely in our power business. The rest of the company really is performing very well. If you look at aviation, if you look at healthcare, if you look at our renewable business, the rest of the company growing, generating cash. We've had an issue in one part of the company. That's what you're really seeing in terms of our restructuring efforts, having to make changes to our dividend. So we've called 2018 a reset year. I think in those businesses we'll be in, fix-up mode. The rest of the businesses will be, and I'm really trying to focus the company on the power business, the healthcare business, aviation business going forward. My job is to isolate the resources and the investment and make sure they're not affected by the areas of the company that we need to fix. So
when you talk about being in fix-up mode, outside of the cost-cutting plans that you've already outlined, which is $1 billion in 2017 and $2 billion in 2018, what else is part of the larger fix-up plan that you speak of? Because there have been concerns on whether you should continue to keep some of these businesses together. Is even this much too complex? Because if the restructuring exercise is all about making complexity less, then does this continue to achieve that purpose?
So what we announced, Shereen, is really a couple of things. We had a presentation in November to analysts where we said, hey, we're really going to focus aviation, healthcare, power. I had a sense watching the company, even before this job, that we were just spread a little bit too thin, focused on too many things, and that to really support and invest and grow the core businesses that we're really strong in, that we needed to lighten our load in the other businesses. So we announced $20 billion of divestitures, and that we're examining our options with our transportation business and our oil and gas business. So those are very good businesses, but at some point I felt we had to step back and say we can't feed everything at once. I want to focus on these three businesses and then really support those. We've got big investments in digital, making these industrial businesses digital, and then additive manufacturing, which is a very new age way to produce things, and it really will affect supply chain. So we're going to use that in our three businesses, but we're getting into that as a business line as well and sell those capabilities to companies around the world. So the piece that's left is a very robust, 3 #1 franchises, global. I mean, people would give anything to have any one of those businesses, never mind all 3 of those, and the rest we'll find the right homes for.
When do you hope that you will find the right homes for the rest of them?
I'd say 2018 basically is what we said was 1 to 2 years, but I'd say 2018 largely would be the process of negotiating and deciding what to do with those, and then it usually takes 6 or 12 months.
Have potential buyers already started engaging with you?
As I said, these are really high quality businesses. So I've got a lot of things to do in this job, but one of them is, my phone rings off the hook on a number of these things. So we really had good businesses. I just wanted more focus on the largest and strongest ones.
So part of this reset, in terms of new areas of opportunity outside of the 3 growth engines that you've already identified that you want to bet on and stick with, as you make the bet for the future, is there anything that's interesting that you could potentially consider?
So again, I think the possibilities for digital, we have barely scratched the surface. If you're talking a scale of 1 to 100, we're at like 3. So I think we've identified that as an area, but in terms of how it really comes to life in our business and our customers' business, very, very early stages. So the other thing, as I said, additive manufacturing, I think, is going to transform everything about manufacturing, everything about supply chain, everything about just-in-time inventories. It's going to be, people will look back at the way we do things today and say that seems quite backwards. So we're not going to get into a completely different business line or something that we're generally not into today. And again, I come back and say, if you look global, long-term forecast, what's growth in transportation, aviation? What's growth in healthcare? What's growth in power and renewables? These are, these are 20, 30, 40-year cycles that we think we can ride for a long time. We just want to be the best in the world at those businesses and in those businesses.
So, you know, there is obviously a confidence issue at this point in time, and you need to convince investors and need to convince Wall Street about how this restructuring operation is planning out for you. But what's been the biggest challenge for you personally, taking over at a time when you need to pursue this sort of hard restructuring, hard reset?
So, a couple things I'd say. I've been in tough times before. I started out in the financial service business. I went through a number of sort of cycles in that business and restructurings of investments and things we had. So I've done something like this many times before. And I took over a healthcare business 3 years ago. And at that time, nobody liked our healthcare business. There are a lot of questions. Why don't we get rid of it? Why do you guys keep this thing? I came in and spent a few months looking and said, this is basically a really good company, really good asset, really good technology, incredible global franchise. We can run it better. Let's, you know, focus on the customers. Let's focus on what matters. Let's get rid of the pieces that aren't. Now people love our healthcare business. And so I look at the same thing with the company right now. I feel like I know what we need to do. I know that most of the issues we have are self-generated and are therefore in our control to fix them. And so we just have to do it. So 2018, it's not an easy button that we wake up on January 1st and everything's finished. But I'm highly, you said there's a confidence issue. I don't have a confidence issue, but I realize that we have to show people, you know, all the words in the world that I say don't matter.
So when you say that a lot of the issues are self-generated issues, is it just too much diversification essentially?
No, because
what would be the top 3 self-generated issues that have led to where you are today?
So 2 things on that, Shereen. One is if we had issues in 7 businesses at once, then I think you could say, hey, there's something systemically wrong with the, you know, the way we're running the company or the, you know, intrinsically the complexity of the company. I do want less complexity, but I look and say the biggest issues are really in one business, our power business, and we made basic mistakes there around size of the market, change in the mix to renewables, and there's a chain reaction of that. We built too much inventory thinking the market was going to be stronger. So it was really a localized issue and again, really not in the India market, in other markets. So more focus is better, less complexity is better, but most of the company running well right now.
You know, you talked about healthcare, and I want to come back and discuss India specifically from a healthcare perspective. There's been a lot of controversy, especially when it comes to MNCs operating in India, on price caps, for instance, medical instruments and, you know, stents and so on and so forth. Is this something that, you know, that concerns you at all at this point in time?
Listen, it's for our products and services in India, it's a highly competitive market. And so we're out there competing every day against multinational competitors, Indian competitors, Chinese companies are in this space. So we feel like we're in a very intense market, and so we don't feel like there's any kind of pricing, you know, umbrella or something that we're living under in India. So I think as a general philosophy, we're a market-oriented company, and I think if you're trying to draw investments and activities, the more the market is controlling what happens, and the more people are rewarded or penalized for their own merits and their own competitiveness and their own customer value and things like that, that's in general a better environment anywhere around the world.
So let me end then by asking you about where India fits in the strategic roadmap for G. Clearly, from a revenue perspective, even if you're at 5, it's not really going to change global dynamics for you in your mix. But from a strategic perspective, you know, what's the mandate? What's the brief to the team here in India?
So first of all, 5 becomes 10, 10 becomes 20. So I mean, you have to start somewhere. And frankly, when I first came here, that was one of the arguments. People were like, it's not that big. Even if it grows 15 or 20% a year or 30% a year, it still won't be that big. And we could have taken that thought and just stopped right there. So it has impact in an absolute sense financially. The bigger thing to me that we've learned over time in India is how to look at the, you know, the marketplace first, what things work, what do customers really need. And so when I spent my time here, I had a good sense of the company's strengths and what we could do. But I'd meet so many customers like, yeah, that's good, but what I need is this. In my environment, I need this. In my clinic, I need this. And so they've really, I think, taught us to be outcome-oriented, solution-oriented. And that's the future of the world. People aren't buying devices because they want devices. They're buying healthcare equipment because they want clinical outcome or economic outcome. They're buying planes because they want to get from point A to point B. So It's a big financial driver. It's a cost point that we have to look at and say, you know, the rest of our businesses have to be competitive here. And then lastly, just that mindset, the growth mindset, and that I'd finish with that. If I had to sum up India in one word, I'd say it's growth in every aspect, inside our company, in the country, optimism in the future. And, you know, strategy is a mix of plans and numbers and mindset. And I think, you know, if I could have that India mindset everywhere in the company, I'd be super happy.
Well, John, we wish you the very best of luck with your new innings at GE and with your plans here in India. It's always a pleasure speaking with you. Thanks very much for joining us on CNBC TV18.
All right, Shereen, thank you. Appreciate it.
Well, with that, it is time for us to wrap up the CNBC TV18 special from all of us here. Goodbye, and many thanks for watching.